Greetings and welcome to Moritz Workshop channel. In the last video we had a short introduction of hoods and we promised how easy it could be to make one. It really doesn't matter if it's handmade or machine made. Of course, myself with Reenactor's heart, I definitely prefer fully handmade. At least the visible seams. But what is really important is the material which you will use. And that depends on functionality. What do you want from this piece of gear? If you are creating costume for use indoors, for example for some cosplay event, then I would definitely recommend to use something light and airy. But keep in mind, it won't hold the shape as well. If you prefer practicality, as I, then you practically have a choice between two materials, and it is linen and wool. And those two you can combine in different manners. If you want something for winter that will keep you really warm, then use double layer wool. Thick fabric, tightly woven, that will do the trick. If you want something universal, like to wear all year around, use thinner wool and line it with linen. That's the best choice. And if you want something for summer to keep you cool and just keep out the bruises from armor, use double linen. Best choice again. Always make the hood double layered. It doesn't matter if it's double linen, wool and linen, or double wool. It will be prettier. You won't see the edges of the fabric, it will hold the shape better, and most importantly, it will last longer. In a short introduction, we shown you how to make a nice head out of the cape. You just take it like this, roll it up a bit, and put on the head. Brilliant! This is the base of chaperone, which was really popular in the late 15th century Europe. If you want to mention a game character from Witcher games, well, Vernon Roach. He wears early version of chaperone. It's just rolled cape. Especially this type is really useful. You can use it as a makeshift bag, or the long tip can be used as a tourniquet. So really universal piece of gear. Now about the stylization. At first you must define which character you want to present, and also that means which appearance you want to create. If you want to get close to some fantasy setting, still it's always the best way to find some analogy in real human history and get inspired by that. The representation can be a human from some specific realm or any other creature from fantasy world. For everything, visuals or technology, you can find a connection with real history, because the civilizations of the world most probably already created, so you have your inspiration. For example, the dwarves. In most fantasy worlds, they are inspired by early medieval period or the Viking Age, or, for example, the Art Deco, the newer artistic style. But they are always kind of rectangular, but it matches, so it seems perfect. In a Witcher world, you have the Skellige faction, the islanders, which are inspired by the Viking Age combined with some kind of Highlanders of Scotland. So really powerful combination, and on the base of that you can create your costumes, gear and all other stuff. So also like the hoods or coifs, they are some kind of square shaped, like this style, and the colorful patterns are the best choice. For the northern realms, we will choose more rounded shape, like this one, with a longer tip, and we will focus on quality fabric, and we will choose the colors that will match the specific faction or kingdom, and that will create the connection. Nilfgaard, it is a large realm, so you can find different styles, but the main focus will be always on practicality and some kind of uniformity. It's connected with a black color, but the gear or the uniforms need to be created on a large scale. So they should be easy to make, but mainly functional. Of course, not only the Witcher world, it's a good place to properly use hoods. You have many different fantasy worlds or fantasy settings. For example, beloved Lord of the Rings. You have their different human cultures with their own sense of fashion. You have their dwarves, and again, with kind of a rectangular shapes. So the basic pattern like this, again, you can use it almost the same, but maybe with more earthy colors and different decorations. Then you have the elves with their high thin lines, use of a posh fabric and bright colors, and also they have the sense of detail, small decoration. That's kind of beautiful, of course. And maybe kind of opposite, we have orcs with their kind of a rough culture, but it has its own sense of elegance. This is an example of orcish hood. It's in progress. It's missing the vital part of breaking down that gives the final sense of the culture. But the base is like irregular stitches, exposed edges, that also adds to the feel. But the basic pattern is practically the same. So as we said, the cultural sense of elegance, their viewpoint on beauty, their sense of detail, all that shapes the final appearance of the clothing and all of the gear. In the movies, usually or sometimes, the practicality is not the main feature, but it always pays out to focus on practicality. Now about the pattern itself. You have many choices. You can make it more square-like, you can make it more rounded or underhelm shaped, which precisely follows the shape of your head. You can make it with a long tip or without it. Many choices, but the principle is still the same. You can make the pattern from only two halves, but that will take more fabric. That's why usually you put the wedge in the front and the back. The simplest pattern is composed of 3 geometric pieces, and it is one rectangular and 2 squares. And that's it, that's all. Some universal measurements for this pattern would be like 100 centimeters to 35, and for the squares 30 to 30 centimeters. If you have a larger head, then you can just add a bit of fabric to all the pieces and you will have a larger pattern. We won't fully tailor it in this video, we'll just use pins to speed up the progress. So, how to do it? Just fold the rectangle in half, and one side will be the opening for your face. Then we'll take the square and pin it right here. Then you'll just turn it around and pin another side of the square right here. And the front of the coif is done. So to the back. Here you just pin the coif together and close the back of the hood. And right here you'll just pin in another square. Turn it again and pin the last side of the square. So now the base of the coif is done. Just now, here where are the pins, we need to stitch it together. When we stitch it, here of course we have to leave the opening for the face. And now we can just try it on if it fits well. So this is the one layer, the lining for the coif. Right here we have the upper layer. It's exactly the same, only you can see here that the stitches are where the pins were. For the smoother appearance, you can secure the edges like this and make it flatter. You will do this to the upper part and also to the lining. In a moment, we'll just briefly show how I make the seams and how to secure the edges. So right here, just for example, for a basic sewing, you just need a needle and a thread, and of course the scissors. So you'll just take the fabric, go in and out. And that you will repeat again, just be careful. And again until the seam is done. This is just one way. Then I will just turn the fabric and go back to fill the gaps. And this is the final seam. That's how I do it. Someone maybe do it differently, but this is my style. So how to secure the edges? I will just turn the fabric out, flat it, and with small seam on one side and longer on the other side, I continue around the edges. So here on the front you have just small stitches, and on the back side, which will be inside of the fabric, you have these longer, and that's it. So this was a short showcase how I make the seam and how I create those pieces of clothing. Now how to put the upper layer and the lining together. You will take the upper layer and turn it, and then you take the lining and put it in like seam on seam. And then you can catch it with the pins and connect the edges. So here we have the opening for the face. We'll put it together edge on edge, seam on seam, and just briefly secure it with the pins so we will have easier work. And now we fold the both edges in like this, and again we'll use a needle and a thread to connect it. Again we make a smaller seam on the front, like on the upper layer, and longer inside, but not as long when we secure it the inner edges. And that's how you continue around all the coif. So if we do it all around and finish it, we will create the final garment. As you see here, the edges are nicely connected, a little bit longer seams inside, shorter outside. The seams are nice and flat and lace exactly on each other. And so this is your final product, your new coif. Exactly this one it's a little bit shabby because it's older piece already used. But that gives the garment its own story. I'm looking forward to see yours and their stories. If you are interested in more details, like how precisely sew it together, if you didn't catch it, please leave us a comment and we'll make a more detailed video dedicated to basic tailoring, and we can show it on an example of the coif because it's one of the basic pieces of gear you need to have. It was nice to be with you in a basic tailoring video. Leave us a comment if you want more details. Of course, we'll gladly to show you, and see you next time. Bye.